Hi everybody, my name is Ambika and herein you are with me on our Unacademy's YouTube channel which name is Let's Crack 11 CBSE Science. Now I want to make a plea to each one of you out there that guys, please download this particular app, right? And it's just not that because I'm asking you to do so, but rather it is something which is really helpful for all of you. Now the question arises, why should we do that? Because herein you will going to have daily live classes. Along with that, you will going to have live tests and quizzes. There will be a proper formative structured courses lined up for you. Along with that, once you will going to enroll yourself, you will going to have an unlimited access to almost all sort of other streams like other subjects as well. So with one particular code, you can enroll yourself with Unacademy, and then you will going to have lots and lots of lectures, sessions lined up for you from different streams. Right now, you can also prepare with the, nation's best top educators who are so good, who are actually, they're gods when it comes to their own subjects, right? So for that, if you want to be, if you want to be educated by the best educators, so for that, you need to download this particular app. So now, what you need to do, you need to go to your Play Store, right? And therein, it's very simple how we download our games, how do we download the other things. In the similar fashion, you can also download Unacademy's learning app. The pricing is not that expensive, I believe. It's really affordable for each one of us. So if it is actually, then go for it and do download the particular app. And you can also use my code, which is AMBIKA, to get a 10% discount. So for that, go for it. Now, with this, we will be going to begin with our today's agenda. So I have a question for all of you. Who is he? I know the name is written right there on the top, but then still. So he is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was an entrepreneur and a founder of Apple, and he quit Reed College in Portland, Oregon after exactly completing the first semester of his college. Right. Next is Bill Gates. So, after attending the prestigious Harvard University for 2 years, Gates dropped out to focus on building what would become Microsoft. So, he enrolled himself in, my God, Harvard University. Like that is a prestigious university, right? And he was there for like exact 2 years, and post that he left the college. So he is simply, he's a college dropout, right? Along with that, he has also founded Microsoft. That we all know, right? Next is Mark Zuckerberg. So after completing his second year at the Harvard, the world's largest social network, Facebook, he found. So exactly after completing his second year at Harvard University, he left the university, he left the college, and post that he was there in Silicon Valley, and therein he found Facebook. Next is Ivan Williams. So he is the co-founder at Twitter. William is also a college dropout, having quit the University of Nebraska after attending 3 semesters. So again, this fellow also the co-founder of Twitter. So he also left college. He's a college dropout, and he left University of Nebraska after attending 3 semesters. He started by selling tutorial videos to help people get on the internet in 1994. So how he actually got into this field, because he was helping people. He was preparing those tutorials wherein how you can use internet. That too in year 1994. So that was his plan. He dropped out from his college, and then later he became the co-founder of Twitter. Daniel Ek. So the Spotify co-founder quit college just 8 weeks later after enrolling into Sweden's Royal Institute of Technology. So again, one more person, one more famous person who actually founded Spotify. He also left the college in exactly like later part of his like exactly after 8 weeks, right? So there is something which is phenomenal with all these people, right? What is that? What is so different and what is so similar in each one of them is that all of them have left out their colleges. They all are college dropouts. And in fact, a very famous American author, Mark Twain, once said, I have never let my schooling get in the way of my education. So all these, famous people, they all have a very, very, very different idea of education or getting success is like, if they are successful in their lives, so that was typically their dedication, right? And their X factor. They had a zeal to do something or the other, and that is why they have landed where they are. But again, one more thing, it's not about that they have done it, they have left out the colleges, they have left out the schools, so everybody should do that. No. But these are the, hi Shatakshi. So these are the few people who have left their colleges. That is your Daniel Eke, who is the co-founder of Spotify, Yvonne Williams, who is the co-founder of Twitter, Mark Zuckerberg, he needs no introduction, Bill Gates, again, no introduction, and Steve Jobs. So each one of them have left out their colleges, their own alma mater, and then they achieved something or the other in their lives. And that is why Mark Twain, the famous author, simply said, and he's a very famous American author though, that I have never let my schooling get in the way of my education. So education, हाँ शताक्षी आज शाम को क्लास है. So education simply doesn't mean that you are going to school every day and you are sitting, for the classes, irrespective of having, you are able to understand what you are getting there. Whatever information are being passed on to you, it doesn't matter to just cramp it out. Education is something about, wherein you are trying to figure out new things, wherein you are trying to get to know how to think. So these are the basic ways which the education should provide us, rather something which actually teaches us just to cram, just to learn. But with new education policy, I believe something new is lined up for all of us. And yeah, we all are waiting for it desperately. Now, today's agenda is we will going to discuss in detail, line by line, Albert Einstein at school, right? And it is written by this short, beautiful story is written by Patrick Pringle. Now, what is there in this story? What all is lined up for us in this particular story is that we learn about the father of modern physics and who is simply Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein is known all over for his valuable contributions to physics and the theory of relativity. Right? So this is something which we all know, right? Who doesn't know Albert Einstein? So herein we will going to read about the famous scientist, the famous physicist, how he was in his school, what kind of a character he was when he was in school, what all troubles, if he had any, what were they. So that is all the agenda of this particular chapter. Just to let you know कि आपके जो the authors maybe you're reading right now, or maybe the scientists, the contribution they have made in different fields, what kind of lifestyles they had back then, and what kind of schooling they had in those times. However, the story brings forth his school days, which were not that pleasant. And in this particular story, we will going to find out Albert Einstein's school days, and unfortunately, they weren't so pleasant for him. Naturally, everyone must think that such a genius mind would have excelled at school. और हमें यही लगता है ना कि the person who has achieved so much in his life, the one, और ये नहीं है that he was very much into maybe somebody is into theater, somebody is into music. If they leave school, we don't mind that much and we appreciate that. But somebody who has contributed in the world of academics, he himself never liked to go to school, right? So that is something which makes Albert Einstein so different, and that is why maybe we are reading him in our syllabi. But as I've already told you, he was excelled from the school, right? He was expelled from the school. He never liked going to school. But it wasn't so much when he was in school, so he never liked to go to school. Now, let's know something about our author, that is Laurence Patrick Pringle, right? So he was born in 1935 in New York, again, that means in the USA. His first book was published in 1968, Dinosaurs and Their World. He's a writer, photographer, wildlife biologist, and an educator. So he's like a package of all, I believe. Albert Einstein at School is an extract from the book Young Einstein. So this particular extract is taken from the book which was written by Laurence Patrick Pringle himself, and the name of the book is Young Einstein, right? Now, a bit about Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was born in Ulm in the Kingdom of Wittenberg in Germany on 14th March 1879. His father was an engineer and a salesman. In 1880, his family moved to Munich. Munich is a small place in Germany where his father founded the company which used to manufacture electrical equipment. Later, they moved to some other parts of Germany. So they were there for a very short span of time, and then after Munich, they moved to the other part of Germany. Albert attended a Catholic elementary school from the age of 5. So, like any other student, back then he also attended school, right? And that too from the age of 5. But he never ever liked the whole idea of going to school. He never supported the whole idea of it because education had a different meaning for Albert Einstein. It wasn't something wherein you're going to school, wherein you're cramming up things, up से रट रहे हैं चीजों को, and you don't know the importance or value of it. Hi Rishabh. So that wasn't the idea of Albert Einstein. He never liked going to school. Few years later, the whole family left Germany and moved to Italy. So post some years, the whole family left Germany and they all settled down in Italy. Now, few of the characters. First of all, the setting of the story. The not the movie. Sorry, the story is set in Munich. So Munich is here. This is your Germany, right? So it is exactly in the extreme bottom of the map of Germany. That is your Munich. The whole story is set in Munich. That is a small part of Germany. Now, characters. So, as you all know, this chapter is widely going to talk about Albert Einstein. This we already know, right? That is, क्योंकि title में भी Albert Einstein का नाम है, so for sure. And here, Albert Einstein is a school student, right? He's a school student here. Mr. Buran, a history teacher at Albert School. So, he is simply a history teacher in the school where Albert was studying. Yuri, a friend of Albert in Munich. Mr. Ko, a mathematics teacher at Albert's school. Landlady, a woman who rented a room in her house to Albert. Head teacher, who is simply the headmaster of the school. Dr. Ernst Well, a doctor who specialized in nerves. And Elsa, that is Albert's cousin. So these are the only few characters in the whole story, right? And majorly, the story will going to revolve definitely about Albert Einstein, around Albert Einstein and his friend Yuri a bit, right? Now, what is the theme of this chapter? Like, why are we reading it? So basically, as I've already told you, and we already know with the help of the title that it is about school. So school teaching, this whole chapter is questioning the present time school teaching, like how it is supposed to be and why it is not that way. The conventional system, conventional means purane time wala, the traditional, okay? The traditional school of education crushes the creativity of the minds of the young students. And as we all know, maybe I don't know, आप लोग का क्या view है, क्या idea है? If you have any of the views and ideas about the present time school system, do let me know. Right? Do write in the comment box. So the conventional or the traditional system of education crushes the creativity of the minds of the young students. So this whole, the traditional system of education that gives no liberty to the creative mind. They actually crush it out, they actually kill it. That has what happened with Einstein in early years of his school. And this is something which has happened with Einstein in the early years of his school also. The students are judged on the basis um, of how well they can memorize dates, and the students are judged on the basis of how well they can memorize dates and learn answers. So that is all. I mean, we go for our school, right? And that is what we give our exams, and gradually we move to the other class. And what is the criteria of judging somebody's intelligence? It's simply by how well you have memorized, how well you have understood the, not understood, sorry, how well you have memorized the answers, and you just need to write it down. The total sort of ratification is supposed to be there. But this should not be the agenda of education. Rather, one should impart skills which will help students how to think. So rather, we should know how exactly one is supposed to learn. How exactly are we, what exactly are our ways to, to polish our skills, right? That should be the agenda of education. Rather, one should impart skills which will help students how to think. And we should give more of the idea like how one should think, rather, what exactly are you supposed to learn, and write it down. Teachers should encourage the students to be inquisitive, and rather, teachers should encourage the whole idea of somebody who is inquisitive. Inquisitive means asking questions, right? We should let it happen so that the whole idea of knowing something new will not be crushed down. You know how if somebody asks us a question, कोई छोटा बच्चा हमसे question करता है, and if we don't know the correct answer, we simply say that, it is not important, it is not relevant, you don't need to know it. So that should not be the whole criteria of it. Rather, we should actually invent such type of education system wherein each one of us are wherein each one of us should know what exactly, how exactly we can think, and what all what all interests you should know about that in detail. Now, with that, let's begin with our topic, and that is Albert Einstein at school. Now, that is already, I have already told you that is being written by Patrick Pringle. So, Albert Einstein, yeah. So, from 1879 to 1955, that is his birth and death time, is regarded as the greatest physicist since Newton. So, after Newton, the famous physicist is definitely Albert Einstein. In the following extract from the young Einstein, as I have already told you, this is the short excerpt, or extract को हम excerpt भी बोल सकते हैं. So this is the short excerpt which is taken from the text The Young Einstein. The well-known biographer Patrick Pringle describes the circumstances which led to Albert Einstein's expulsion from a German school. So herein we will come to know about an expulsion. Expulsion is to remove. Expulsion means to kick out basically, or to remove. So to remove, so how Albert Einstein was removed from this German school. He was expelled from this school. Yeah. So let's begin with the reading. In what year, Einstein asked the history teacher, did the Prussians defeat the French at Waterloo? So Einstein is asking his history teacher that in which particular year uh, the Prussians defeated the French at Waterloo. Sorry, the teacher asked this question to Einstein that in which particular year Persians basically defeated the French at Waterloo. I don't know, sir. So Albert Einstein simply said that I don't know. Why don't you know? You have been told it often enough. And the sir is like, why don't you know about it? It has been discussed in the class multiple times. and still you don't know it. Why so? I must have forgotten. So Albert Einstein is simply saying that, I simply must have forgotten. I am unable to recall it. Don't you, did you ever try to learn? Asked Mr. Brown. And he's like, did you ever try to learn it? Did you ever actually make efforts to learn it? No, sir, Albert replied with his unusual, unthinking honesty. So he told this that no, sir, I haven't even tried to learn it. So he gave an answer abruptly, right? Ekdam say he simply said, no, I didn't pay any of the attention. And in fact, I don't know when was the battle fought. Why not? I can't see any point in learning dates. One can always look them in a book. The sir simply asked, like, why didn't you learn it? And Albert Einstein simply said that, I don't find any of the objective, any of the ideas wherein I need to learn these dates. One can always look them in a book, and since one can always check out the dates in a book, so that is why I haven't learned it. Mr. Braun was speechless for a few moments, and on this, Mr. Braun was like he had nothing to say. He was simply tongue-tied, right? Because that is actually a true and a very clear point, like why one should need to learn the dates. And honestly, guys, even I'll agree and accept this fact here that I know I'm a teacher here, but still I am really bad with dates. I simply can't remember dates. You know, so that is something, and I always had the same idea that why one should need to do it. You have internet these days. You have, I mean, these days we do have internet. Otherwise, we do have books. So why do we need to learn it? So any which way, Mr. Braun was speechless because he also agreed to a certain point that actually there's no point in learning dates because one can actually find it out in the book. You amaze me. So amaze simply means you surprise me, right? You surprise me, or we can simply say astonish me, right? I'm so confused when I hear you. That was something which his teacher was trying to say. You amaze me, Einstein, he said at last. Don't you realize that one can always look most things up in the book? That applies to all the facts you learn at school. So herein, the sir simply said that it actually applies on every field, right? Like we can learn the facts, we can learn the data. We don't need to do it actually because ये सब कुछ तो books के अंदर available है. So why are we actually trying it out? हमें ये क्यों करना है? And sir has gone very satirical here. You amaze me, Einstein, he said at last. Don't you realize that one can always look most things up in books? That applies to all the facts you learn at school. So he's like, it's just not about history, right? Whatever facts you're actually getting to know, you all can know it from the book itself. So what is the objective of learning it? Then I suppose you don't see any point in learning facts. Frankly, sir, I don't. And on this also, Albert Einstein simply said that yes, I agree, sir. I don't find any point even in learning facts because, as you already told me, they are available in the book. Then you don't believe in education at all. So again, he's asking that you actually debunk the whole idea. Debunk means you don't like it. ये जो पूरा education system है, you don't like it, right? You debunk the education system, right? ये जो अभी हो रहा है, you completely disagree with that. Oh yes, sir, I do. So imagine you are actually telling this to your professor, to your teacher out there that yes, I don't like the education system. So he simply said, oh yes, sir, I do. I don't think learning facts is education. And he made it very clear that he completely denied the whole idea of telling this thing that learning facts is education. For, I mean, Albert Einstein never agreed on this that learning facts is actually similar, it is of the same fashion as that of education. In that case, said the history teacher with heavy sarcasm, perhaps means as I have already told you, uh, Pranam Deepak. In that case, in that case, said the history teacher with heavy sarcasm, perhaps you will be so kind as to tell the class the Einstein theory of education. So perhaps means maybe. So यहाँ पे sir ने भी बहुत sarcastically, his history sir also said that, in the very same fashion, you also tell me that what is your theory of education, क्योंकि whatever education you are getting in school, you don't like it at all. So rather you should tell us what should be, how exactly, what is your definition of education. Albert flushed. So he was pretty much embarrassed first, right? He was pretty much embarrassed initially. I think it's not facts that matter, but ideas. And he said that it doesn't matter about the facts, but rather it is the whole process of knowing things. It's all about getting ideas. He said, I don't see the point in learning the dates of battles or even which of the armies killed more men. And he simply didn't like the whole process of learning those dates of battles or कौन सी army ने किसको मारा, कितने लोग मरे. He had no interest in knowing all that previous, incidents or accidents which took place. I would be more interested in learning why those soldiers were trying to kill each other. And he simply said that I rather want to know that why those soldiers have killed each other. What was the reason that there was a battle? Why they killed? Why so many of them were killed? Wasn't there any other way to settle down the war, the battle? So he had a very different outlook on these particular matters. That's enough. Mr. Braun's eyes were cold and cruel. We don't want a lecture from you, Einstein. You will stay in for an extra period today. He's like, okay, I don't want to hear whatever you're trying to say. And he became very cold. He became very cruel in his own words. We don't want a lecture from you. And he said that I don't want to hear it from you. What is your idea of education? I don't want to hear it from you, Einstein. You will stay in for an extra period today, and rather as a punishment, you will going to stay here in the school for one more extra period. Although I don't imagine it will do you much good. And he simply said that I completely agree. मैं आपको punishment दे तो रहा हूँ that you are supposed to stay here for one more period, but then it will not going to help you out. Although I don't imagine it will do so much good, and it will not going to help you out, because any which way you don't like coming to school, you don't like studies at all, so this extra period would be a disaster for you. It won't do the school any good either, and in a similar way, how this extra period will not going to help you, in the very same fashion, you staying back after school will not going to help school as well. You are disgraced. Disgrace means you are a clear shame for this school. So imagine Albert Einstein being called as a disgrace for the school. Imagine that. I don't know why you continue to come. And rather he says that I don't understand, why do you prefer to come to school then? It's not my wish. And he said that it's not my wish. Um, Albert pointed out, and he although he was very disastrous in this, he said that it wasn't my own plan, it wasn't my own idea of me coming to school every day. Then you are an ungrateful boy. Yeah. Then you are an ungrateful boy. Oops. And ought to be ashamed of yourself. And he's like, if you don't like it, still you are coming, then you are a very ungrateful boy, because हमें कैसे बोला जाता है that you are so blessed कि आपको पढ़ने को मिल रहा है, that you are so fortunate enough that you are supposed to study. So in the similar way, that is what Albert Einstein sir also told him, that you are so lucky that you are coming to school. Look at those other people who are unable to come to school, but still you have no respect, you have no gratitude in whatever you are getting. Then you are an ungrateful boy and ought to be ashamed of yourself. I suggest you ask your father to take you away. And rather, he simply said that I ask your father, he should take you away from here. Albert felt miserable. Miserable means he felt really sad. His heart broke there. When he left school that afternoon, not that it had been a bad day, most days were bad now, and he's like, जो author है वो हमें he's simply clearing it out that it wasn't like that it was a bad day at school, that is why he was feeling miserable. No, that wasn't the case. In fact, most days were bad now. Anyway, but because he had to go back to the hateful place the next morning. So why he didn't like it, why he was so sad? Because again he's supposed to go to the same school, to the same place again the next morning. He only wished his father would take him away, and he had such a bad and deep desire that he wanted to be taken away by his father back with him. But there was no point in even asking, and Albert Einstein knew that there was no point even in asking anybody, in fact his own father, that will he going to take him away, take him back along with him, because his father would not ever going to agree on that particular notion. He knew what the answer would be. He would have to stay until he had taken his diploma. And he simply made it very clear, and he knew it though, that he made it very clear that his father wanted to have a diploma degree, and then only Rishabh, that is what I'm here for. So I think I have to do that. I have to stick to it. I do have to teach here. He knew what the answer would be. He would have to stay until he had taken his diploma, and he was supposed to stay at school till the time he did get his diploma. Going back to his lodging, so lodging is a room. I'll write it here for you. A room which is rented. A room which is rented in somebody somebody else's house. So that is called as lodging. Okay, going back to his lodging did not cheer him up. And in fact, it wasn't just the school, it was also going back to the place wherein he was staying up. That wasn't also the place which was very cheerful spot for him. His father had so little money to spare that Albert had been found a room in one of the poorest quarters of Munich, and his father had no extra money to give it to Albert, and that is why he was living in Munich's one of the poorest quarters, wherein he simply got one room. He did not mind the bad food and lack of comfort, although he is not complaining about the bad food which he got there or lack of comfort, or even the dirt and squalor. Squalor means, very dirty and filthy. I'll write it here. Filth, बहुत ज़्यादा ganda or dirt. So he's simply like, he doesn't mind the poor qualities which are poor facilities which he was getting there, the bad food or lack of comfort, but rather Munich is a city in Germany. Yeah, Munich is a city in Germany, but at least, oops, yeah, yeah, he did not mind the bad food and lack of comfort, or even the dirt and squalor, but he hated the atmosphere of slum violence. So it was simply an atmosphere of exactly like a slum. His landlady beat her children regularly, and what his landlady used to do, she used to beat her children regularly every day. And every Saturday, her husband came drunk and beat her. And on every Saturdays, her husband used to come and he used to beat her. He was a drunkard, and he used to come back home and he used to beat his wife. So this landlady used to beat her own children, and similarly, her husband used to come home drunk, being drunk, and then he used to beat his wife. But at least you have a room of your own, which is more than I can say. And herein we have got the next character in our story, and that is Yuri. So यहाँ पे Yuri simply telling us and telling Einstein that it's okay, whatever things are happening with you, but at least you have a room of your own. So which is something better, said Yuri when he called round in the evening. So he has been called out, and two of them were walking in the streets in the evening. At least you live among civilized human beings, even if they are all poor students, said Albert. And he simply said, Albert Einstein said that to Yuri, that, I know I've got a bed only, but herein, you are living with civilized human beings. Civilized means somebody who has manners, right? Full of manners. So he simply made it very clear that at least you are living with civilized, with people who have manners, even though they all are poor, but at least they have ways to live life. They have manners. They are not all civilized, Yuri replied. And Yuri said, no, no, no. You need to check your facts, buddy. All of them are not civilized. All of them are not having the manners at all. Did you not hear that one of them was killed last week in a duel? So duel is basically a combat which is arranged between people, which is arranged between people just to mark their, like literally पहले ऐसा होता था that the duels are being set between people or just to mark their honor. सिर्फ honor के लिए कि किसमें ज्यादा पार है, कौन क्या डिजर्व करते हैं, what all used to be there. So for honor, that was simply they used to conduct those duels. They are not all civilized, Yuri replied. Did you not hear that one of them was killed last week in the duel? And Yuri यहाँ पे बोल रहा है कि you know what, not all of them are civilized. You know what happened last week? One of them was killed in a battle. In a battle means in a duel. So दो लोग fight करते हैं और उस fight का कोई agenda नहीं होता है, कोई objective नहीं होता है, just rather to set the whole idea of having a great honor. And what happened to the one who killed him? And Einstein simply asked, तो अच्छा ठीक है, उसके साथ क्या हुआ? The one who killed the other. Nothing, of course. He is even proud of it. And rather, the one who killed the other person, he is even proud of whatever he has done. His only worry is that the authorities have told him not to fight any more duels. And he simply said that the person who has killed the other person, basically, let's just call him the murderer. So the murderer is actually, he's simply very much disappointed that the authorities had asked him not to be part of any of those duels again. And along with that, he's so disappointed that he had got no scars just to show that how brave he is, or that scar would have ended up showing people at large that this is the badge of honor. He's upset about this because he hasn't a single scar on his face to wear for the rest of his life as a badge of honor, and rather he did not like the whole idea that he killed the other person, उसने सामने वाले को मार भी दिया, but in return उसको कहीं पे scar एक छोटी सी खरोच तक भी नहीं आई, which would have considered as the badge of honor. So imagine the situation of the students back then in Germany, that how they were being all caught up in these battles, in these small duels wherein they were killing each other. Oh, exclaimed Albert. And these are the students. And Albert was so shocked. He was so, he was so perplexed to hear that, and all of them are students. Well, you'll be a student one day, said Yuri. And in fact, yeah, they all are students. In fact, you will be one day the student like them. And on this, Albert Einstein simply said, I doubt it, said Albert glumly. So glumly means in a low spirit, because he did not like going to school. So when his friend said that you will be student one day, he's like, I doubt it. I simply doubt that. I don't think I will ever pass the exams for the school diploma. And herein he simply said that I have doubts that will I ever be able to get the school diploma because I don't like to go to school, and along with that maybe I won't be able to Hi, Chapman Singh. And along with that, I have a sincere doubt that would I ever be able to clear my exams. He told his cousin Elsa the same next time she came to Munich. And here comes the third character of our story, and that is Elsa. So Elsa is Albert Einstein's cousin, right? So she had come here to visit Albert Einstein. She had moved to Munich. As I've already told you, Munich is a small city in Germany. Normally, she lived in Berlin, and otherwise, she used to live in Berlin. Berlin again is there in Germany, where her father had a business. I'm sure you could learn enough to pass the exams, Albert, if you try it, she said. So she simply said that, you know what, Albert, you can clarify, you can actually clear those exams. Only thing is, you need to try for it. I know lots of boys who are much more stupid than you are, who get through. And she's like, you know what? I know lots and lots of boys out there who are so dumb, who are so stupid, but still somehow they get through those exams. And on the contrary, you have got brains, you actually can excel those exams. You need to just think and you need to study for it. They say you don't have to know anything. You don't have to understand what you are taught. And herein the whole idea of education system is being clarified. They say you don't have to know anything. So the teachers, the people, the authorities out there says that you don't need to, हम जो आपको पढ़ा रहे हैं, you don't need to know everything. You don't have to understand, but you are to what you are taught, just be able to repeat in the exams. Only thing you need to do is you need to recall, you need to repeat, you need to puke out whatever you are being taught in the class, and you need to write out the same thing for your exams. That's the whole trouble, said Albert. I'm no good at learning things by heart. And he made it very clear that, you know what, this is the only trouble, this is the only problem which I have. That is, I simply can't learn things by heart. By heart means I simply can't cram them. मैं उनको रट नहीं सकता हूँ. You don't need to be good at it. Anyone can learn like a parrot. And this cousin simply said that, you know what, Elsa simply said that you don't need to worry about it. In fact, anybody can learn like a parrot. You just don't worry. And yet, I always see you with a book under your arm. And she simply said that you don't need to worry about it. And वैसे भी you are somebody who is studious enough, right? And you walk around in the house, in the room, along with a book always in your arm. So you are definitely there for studies. Added Elsa, what is the one you are reading? And she simply asked, okay, tell me, what are you reading right now? A book on geology. Geology? Rocks and things? Do you learn that? So he simply said that yes, I'm reading a book and that is on geology. So she's like, geology, that means, those rocks and things. So, जो rocks or soil की study करती हैं, that is the field which comes from the study of geology. Do you learn that? No, we have hardly any science in school. So children, you will find it out here that geology wasn't being introduced in the school in that particular age when Albert Einstein was there. At least उसकी class में when Albert Einstein was there, उस time पे उनके classes में geology wasn't being taught and science wasn't very much being introduced at that time. But still somehow he drive himself, the science drive Albert Einstein towards it, and he always and always had interest in science. So जो Albert Einstein को पढ़ना था science, he never had that in his school. Then why are you studying it? So the cousin simply asked that because it is not there in school, so why are you even reading it? Why are you even studying it? Because I like it. Isn't that a good enough reason? And Albert Einstein simply made it clear that I'm reading it because I like it, man. I mean, I have this inclination towards learning geology, and that is why I'm learning it. So herein we have got the idea of education, which is different when it comes to learning. We expect that education is all about learning things. If only you will be able to clear exams, if only you can set yourself very much prepared for your exams, then only you know things. No, that wasn't the idea of what Albert Einstein was supporting. You are right, of course, Albert, she said, but it won't help you with your diploma. And she's like, okay, I got it, I agree that you like reading it, you have an interest in it, but definitely, surely, this will not going to help you to get your diploma. Apart from books on science, his only comfort was music. So, other than this, what all interest he had interest in music. And he played his violin regularly until his landlady asked him to stop. And in fact, he used to play his violin regularly until his landlady asked him to stop. That wailing gets on my nerves. So, wailing simply means loud, or that scream, जोर से बोलना. That wailing gets on my nerves, she said. There's enough noise in this house with all the kids howling. Howling is like yelling. How dogs yell at the night, no? वो बहुत जोर से howl करते हैं, like hyenas, right? So that is called as howling. There's enough noise in this house with all the kids howling. Albert was tempted to point out that most of the time it was she who made them howl, and in fact, Albert wanted to make it very clear that maximum time it is this landlady herself who makes everybody yells, howls at her own house. But he decided it was better to say nothing. But this tells us the clear character sketch of Albert Einstein that he never felt like arguing with anybody who is elder to him. I must get away from here, he told Yuri. After 6 months alone in Munich, so after 6 months alone in Munich, he simply said that, and as I've already told you, Albert Einstein's parents weren't there with him, right? They were living far, far away from Albert Einstein, and it was simply Albert who was living all alone here in Munich. I must get away from here, he told Yuri after 6 months alone in Munich. So he was living in Munich for exactly 6 months all alone. It is absurd. Now, it is absurd means it is very much, it is very much uncomfortable. He does not like that I should go on like this. And he never wanted to live a life like this wherein he is not being, wherein he himself wasn't happy. It is absurd that I should go on like this. In the end, it will turn out I have been wasting my father's money and everyone's time. And at the end, it will look like that I have simply wasted my dad's money and everyone's time because I simply don't like, I simply do not prefer to study here in Munich, and I don't like this education system wherein we are being asked to simply cramp up things and sit for our exams. In the end it will turn out, or agar मैं यहाँ पे रुका, so it will look like that I have wasted my dad's money. And we already know the financial condition of Albert Einstein. He was living in a very in a very hellish environment in the landlady's house, wherein this landlady used to hit her children every day, and on Saturday evenings when her husband used to come back home, he used to drink a lot and he used to beat his own wife. So he was living with such a family there, and it was a terrible condition wherein he was residing. It will be better for all I stop now. And that is why Albert Einstein simply made the decision that it would be better for all of us that I should leave this particular place. And then, what will you do? Yuri asked. And on this, Yuri simply asked, then, what will you do? Okay, I completely agree that you do not like being here. But then, what will you do? I don't know. If I go to Milan, I'm afraid my father will send me back. So, wherein his parents were there in Italy, right? His whole family was there in Italy and he was in Germany. So he simply said that, even I agree when my father will come to know that I have moved to Italy, sorry, to Milan, he will also going to send me back unless unless ke saath he has got one idea. His eyes gleamed. Gleamed means got bright when we've got an idea, right? So how our eyes got gleamed up, right? So that is what has happened with Albert Einstein. His eyes gleamed with a sudden idea. Yuri, do you know any friendly doctors? और ये था Albert Einstein का idea. So he simply asked his friend, Yuri, do you know any friendly doctors here in Munich? I know a lot of medical students and some of them are friendly, said Yuri. And he's like, I know a lot of people here and I think few of them are, they all are medical students too and they all are friendly. Doctor, no, I have never had enough money to go once. Why? And herein Yuri is also telling that in fact he never had so much of money wherein he could also go and see the doctor. Suppose, said Albert, that I had a nervous breakdown. And so herein that was the plan that he's simply giving a situation that imagine that suppose I have got a nervous breakdown. So now what is a nervous breakdown? I'll write it here and then we'll go back to the same page. So it is an attack of psychological, it is an attack of psychological disorder such as depression or anxiety so severe, you all can write it down in your book, so severe that it prevents a person to function. Function means to act also, to function normally, or we can simply call this as a panic attack. He's like, so that was simply the plan of Albert Einstein that I will going to, I will going to act like that I had a nervous breakdown. So that is why he was simply wondering that, do you know any doctor? On which Yuri simply told him that no, even I never had so much of money that I could go and visit the doctor, but I do have friends who are medical students. Suppose a doctor would say it's a bad for me to go to school and I need to get right away from it. And that was simply the plan of Albert Einstein that he will going to meet a doctor and he will going to tell him that I have got a nervous breakdown, right? And with that, I won't be able to go to school. So I think I am up for it. I want to go to the doctor. I can't imagine. I can't imagine a doctor saying that. Said Yuri. Yuri simply said that why would a doctor will going to support you on this? Do you think that doctor will going to let you be? He will simply going to give a certificate to you that yes, you are having this problem. I must try, said Albert, to find a doctor who specializes in nerves. And he simply told him that I think I need to find a doctor who is specialized in nerves, just to check out the nervous the neurological problems with Albert Einstein if there is any. There are plenty of them, Yuri told him. So he's like, yeah, there are plenty of them. He hesitated for a moment and then asked, rather reluctantly. Reluctantly means unwilling, unwilling, action, or simply when you oppose the whole idea of it, right? So there are plenty of them, Yuri told him. He hesitated for a moment and then added rather reluctantly. So, although he did not like the whole idea of it, but simply he asked, I will ask of some of the students if they know one, if you like. He's like, okay, I'll still ask if you want to know that do they know anybody who is a doctor? Will you? Oh, thank you, Yuri. Albert's eyes were shining, and on this, when Albert came to know that his friend Yuri is ready to help him out, his eyes were bright with happiness. His eyes were shining. Wait a moment, I haven't found one yet. He's like, wait, why are you thanking me right now? Let me find it out. Let me look for a doctor, and then you can thank me. Oh, I know, but you will. And you know how trust. Oh, how much trust do we have on a friend? Exactly, that is what happened with our very own scientist, that is Albert Einstein, that he had this trust on his own friend, that he thought he will going to help him out for sure. And if I do, I don't know if he will be willing to help you. He's like, okay, I got the whole idea of it that I'm going to find a doctor. Agreed. If I would have found out the doctor, अगर मैं उसको ढूंढ भी लेता हूँ, तो are you sure that he will going to help you out? He will, declared Albert. And he simply said, yeah, for sure. He will. He had this much of confidence. I'm going to have a real nervous breakdown to make it easier for him. He laughed merrily. Merrily means happily. Right? So he's like, I know till that time I'm surely going to have a nervous breakdown, and with that, he will going to trust me for sure. I have never seen you looking less nervous, remarked Yuri. A day or two at school will soon put that right, Albert assured him. Yuri simply said, but I have never seen you so nervous in your entire life. So Albert Einstein simply said that, a day or two in my life again will going to give me a nervous breakdown for sure. So don't think much. I'm going to get a real nervous breakdown if I'm going to go to school. So a day or two, I will surely going to get a real nervous breakdown. Certainly, he had lost his high spirits when Yuri saw him next. I can't stand it any longer, he said. And here in Albert Einstein, tab tak he was all tired of going to school, and he simply said that I can't take it anymore. I can't go to school anymore. I really shall have a nervous breakdown that will satisfy any doctor. And he simply said it, you know what? You better go and get me a doctor. Otherwise, I will surely going to have a bad nervous breakdown. And for that, we really need to see doctor for that. And this doctor will be satisfied to see that, yes, I have right here. I am frightened. I am having a panic attack because I don't want to go to school. Keep it up then, said Yuri. I have found a doctor for you. He's like, oh, that's great. I have finally got a doctor for you. I have found a doctor for you, so you don't need to act this way. You have? Albert's face lit up. And he's like, what? Seriously, you have? And his face was all light up. Oh, good. When can I see him? And he's like, oh, that's great. So when can I finally meet or see this doctor? When can I see him? I have an appointment for you for tomorrow evening. Yuri said, here's the address. And he simply said that, I have got an appointment for you for tomorrow evening. Yuri said, and here's the address. So finally, he gave the doctor's address to Albert Einstein. He handed Albert a piece of paper, and he gave him a piece of paper on which the address was mentioned. Dr. Ernst Wells, is he a specialist in nervous troubles? Asked Albert, and therein he simply got, and therein he simply, okay, Rishabh, that's great, that's good. Yeah, where were we? Dr. Ernst Wells, is he a specialist in nervous troubles? And he simply asked him, so is he actually somebody who is great when it comes to dealing with nervous troubles? Asked Albert. Not exactly, Yuri admitted, and he's like, no, not exactly. As a matter of fact, he only qualified as a doctor last week. So this is a new doctor. I mean, new doctor in a way that he has recently became a doctor, and he's not very much qualified in his own stream. You mean even be his, you may even be his first patient, and in fact, there are chances that you will going to be his first patient in his own life who will going to see him as in like because he has just begun his his practice as a doctor, so you will be his first patient. You knew him as a student then? So Albert simply confirmed that, okay, so then you must be knowing him when he was a student. I have known Ernst for years. And yes, he told him that yes, I know this doctor since years. Yuri hesitated for a few moments. He is not a fool, he warned Albert, and he although made it very clear to Yuri that he is simply not a fool, and on this he warned Albert Einstein that you don't need to play around with Ernst. What do you mean? Don't try to pull the wool over his eyes. So don't try to pull over his eyes means don't try to cheat or deceive him. So don't try to cheat him or don't try to deceive means mislead. So don't try to cheat or mislead him. That's all. Be frank with him, but don't pretend you have got what you haven't. And he's like, all you need to do is you need to be very clear, you need to be very sorted. You need to be very frank with him. And you just need to tell him that what you have got. You don't need to pretend something which you don't have. Because he is, although a new doctor, but he is young enough to understand that you are lying. Not that you would deceive anyone. So he's like, although I know that you are not somebody who will going to deceive anybody and know that, but still I'm just making it very clear for you that you don't need to mislead him. Yuri added, you are the world's worst liar. And he made it very clear because you won't be able to do that because you are world's bad liar. You simply can't lie. So don't even try for that. Albert spent the next day wondering what to tell the doctor. So the whole time he was thinking that, okay, what will I going to tell to this particular doctor? When the time arrived for his appointment, he had worried over it so much that he really was quite nervous. So when finally the time arrived, he was so nervous that he finally got a little bit of nervous breakdown. I don't really know how to describe my problem, Dr. Whale. He began. So he simply told to Dr. Whale that I don't know how do I need to describe my trouble. I'm in so much of problem. He began. Yeah, okay. Don't worry, said the young doctor with a friendly voice. And on this, the young doctor simply said, because as Yuri already told us that he was a young doctor, so Albert Einstein was not in a need to lie to him because he will simply going to catch him. Don't try, said the young doctor with a friendly smile. Yuri has already given me a history of this case, and he made it very clear. He made it clear to Albert Einstein that you don't need to clarify anything. In fact, Yuri has already given me a history of this case. So Yuri has already told me about the basic history of this case, like what all you are going through. Oh, what did he say? And on this, Albert was really shocked, like, okay, what did Yuri say to you? Only that you'd want me to think you have had a nervous breakdown. And he told him that only this much he had told me that you want me to think that you have got a nervous breakdown. And say that you must not go back to that school. And you want me to say this to you that you should not go back to that school. Oh dear. Albert's face fell, and on this, Albert was so astonished. Yuri has already told him. And as we already know, Yuri told this thing to Albert also, that this friend, I mean, this doctor is actually Yuri's friend, just like Albert is. So two of them had shared a great rapport with each other. Oh dear, Albert's face fell. He shouldn't have told you that. Why not? Isn't it true then? And he is simply like, Albert was so embarrassed, and he is like, I so wish that he wouldn't have told you this. Yes, that's the trouble. Now you will say there's nothing wrong with me, and you will tell me to go back to school. And herein, Albert simply told him, like, any other elderly people also, you will going to tell me that I need to go back to school. But please, I really don't want to go back to school, and I need your help. So yes, that's what he told him, that yes, that's the trouble. Now you will say there's nothing wrong with me. And because you know that I'm simply making an excuse of not going to school, so that is what you're going to tell me, that I should rather go to school because school is important. So like you others, you will also going to talk to me in the same fashion. Yes, that's the trouble. Now you will say there's nothing wrong with me, and you will tell me to go back to school. Don't be too sure of that," said the doctor. And he's like, wait, don't come to the conclusion so fast. Don't be so sure what I'm going to say next to you. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure you are in a nervous state about that school. And he simply said that, as a matter of fact, I completely got it, that you are actually in a very nervous state. "But I haven't told you anything about it," said Albert, wide-eyed. "How can you know that?" But he's like, "अभी तक तो मैंने आपको बताया भी नहीं है that I have got a nervous breakdown or not, and I didn't tell you any of the history, any of my own history. So how do you know?" "But I haven't told you anything about it," said Albert, wide-eyed. "How can you know that? So how simply you know about it?" "Because you wouldn't have come to see me about this if you hadn't been pretty close to a nervous breakdown." And this doctor simply told Albert Einstein that if you actually never had a nervous breakdown, you would not have ever dared to come to me, because you are not that person who is simply fooling around. You have a different traits in your own self, so you don't need to worry about it. That's why. Now, said the doctor briskly. Briskly means in a very energetic manner. Yeah. I'm so sorry if it is not clear. Yeah. "I will certify that you have had a nervous breakdown and must stay away from school for a while. What will you do?" So he's like, "Okay, I'll give you a certificate that you are not fine, and once you will going to get a certificate, so what will you do? Because you are not supposed to school, you're not supposed to attend the school anymore." "I will go to Italy," said Albert, "to Milan, where my parents are." And he told the plan that, once I'll get it, I'll go to Milan, to Italy, where my parents are residing presently. "And what will you do there?" "I will try to get into an Italian college or institute." And he simply told him that, I'm going to enroll there with an Italian college or institute. So that is my whole plan. "How can you without a diploma?" So on this, doctor is like, "Okay, you have got a great plan, but how can you enroll yourself without a diploma? Because you need to have a diploma." And as we already know, Albert Einstein was trying to leave the school. वो स्कूल को छोड़ना चाहते थे, and if he would have done that, he would not have going to have any of the diplomas. "I will ask my mathematics teacher to give me something about my work, and perhaps that will be enough." And he's like, "I'm simply going to ask my mathematics teacher to help me out, and for sure, he will going to help me, and whatever he will going to give me as a, as a maybe a code of conduct, it will going to help me to enter into the school, into one of the colleges or institutes of Milan." He added, "Okay, I have learned all the math they teach at school and a bit more. And in fact, I have learned a lot all about the mathematics in school. In fact, more than that from that particular teacher. So for sure, he will going to help me out," he added when Dr. Whale looked doubtful. So he added that, and on this, Dr. Whale was pretty much doubtful. He would have never considered this, that a teacher is helping a student who is trying to leave a school in between the session. Well, it's up to you, he said. And he simply said that, okay, that's totally up to you. If you want to go, I don't mind, you can go. I doubt if it will come off, but I can see you are not doing yourself or anyone else much good by staying here. How long would you like me to say you would stay away from school? Would 6 months be all right? So he simply asked him that how long will you be away, and will 6 months be fine for you, or should I make it for less period of time or for more period of time? How long would you like me to say you would stay away from school? Would 6 months be all right? This is very kind of you. And on this, he simply said that this is very kind of you. So please, please, please do make this certificate for me wherein I can get away from the school. So he was actually going to get a 6 months of certificate wherein which completely states that it's okay if he doesn't go to school because he has actually got the nervous breakdown. How long would you like me to say you would stay away from school? Would 6 months be all right? This is very kind of you. It's nothing. So he simply said that it's very kind of you, that's very sweet of you, that's very gentle of you considering 6 months. So the doctor said it's nothing. I have only just stopped being a student myself. And this doctor simply said that, I have just stopped being a student myself. I've just done with my studies. So I do understand what all you are going through. So I know how you feel. Here you are. Dr. Whale handed him the certificate and the best of luck. And he understood that how a student thinks, and that is what he simply said, that here is your certificate, and I wish you all the best, and I hope you'll achieve whatever you are dreaming of. How much? Nothing. If you have anything to spare, invite Yuri to a meal. And he's like, wait, you don't need to pay me anything. If you have money with you, only thing you need to do is you need to invite your friend Yuri to a meal. He's a good friend of mine and yours too, I think. And he said that, he's a very, very, very good friend of mine, and I think he's a good friend of yours too. Why is he making this comment? Why this doctor is making this comment? Because Yuri had asked this doctor to help his own friend to get this fake certificate. So this clearly shows the friendship of Yuri with both the men, with the doctor as well as with Albert Einstein. Albert had no money to spare, but he pretended he had and took Yuri out to supper. So, although he simply had no money to let it go, to spare on a doctor, but he pretended to give him money, and but the doctor simply said no for it, so he took Yuri out for a supper. Supper is a light food which people eat during night time. Okay, that is called as supper. Isn't it wonderful? He said after showing Yuri the certificate. So finally he got the certificate and he asked Yuri that isn't it fun, finally I got the certificate about which I was thinking way too much, and maybe because of which I've got the slightest of the nervous breakdown. Yes, it's fine, Yuri agreed. 6 months is a good period. And he said that, yes, I agree. And 6 months is a good period of you staying away from your school and maybe from this place. This way, you won't actually be leaving the school. So, if the worst comes to the worst, you will be able to come back and carry on for your diploma. And hi, Ujwal. Yeah, and he simply made it very clear that yeah, and he made it very clear. Yuri gave him this idea that you know what, although this 6 months is a very good time for you, because imagine what if you haven't find out any of the ways when you are in Milan, so at least you can come back to Munich, or यहाँ पे you can actually continue with your diploma, with your academics back in Germany, that too in Munich. I will never go back to that place, Albert assured him. And Albert made it very clear to his friend Yuri that I will never ever going to go back to that place. And that place is the school where he was studying. He hated it that bad. I am going to take this certificate to the head teacher tomorrow. And he said that I'm going to take this particular certificate to the headmaster tomorrow, and that will be the end of it. And that will be the clear end of me staying here in the school. And after that, after giving that certificate to him, I will never ever going to come back to this school. Don't forget to get a reference in writing from your mathematics teacher first, Yuri reminded him. And he told him that don't forget you are supposed to get a reference in writing. Again, you need to get a reference in writing from your mathematics teacher. So don't forget that you really need it. Otherwise, what will you do once you will move to Milan? As we already know, if he is supposed to go to the institutes or to the other centers in Milan, so yeah, in Milan, that is in Italy, right? So for that, he needs somebody's reference, somebody's recommendation, right? So that is why he had a plan. That is what he has told his um, doctor also, that I'm going to get a reference from the mathematics teacher. Again, Albert Einstein had a great inclination towards mathematics, right? He could actually say this thing to doctor itself, that I'm going to get a certificate of this reference from the maths teacher, because he is the only person who understood me, and that is the only subject which I like in the most. So for sure he will going to help me out. Don't forget to get a reference in writing from your mathematics teacher first. So that is what he reminded him of, that don't you dare to forget that you are supposed to get a reference from your mathematics teacher. Mr. Coe willingly gave Albert the reference which he wanted, and on this Mr. Coe, that is the name of the mathematics teacher, Mr. Coe. Mr. Coe willingly gave Albert the reference he wanted. If I say I can't teach you anymore and probably you will soon be able to teach me, will that be all right? He asked, and he simply asked him that what if I tell you that I simply can't teach you anymore, because in few years time, or maybe after a very short span of time, you will be capable enough to teach me. If I say, I can't teach you anymore and probably you will soon be able to teach me, will that be alright? He asked. That's saying too much, sir. And he was simply embarrassed on what his mathematics sir just told him, because, that is like if somebody is trying to make you feel that you know better than your own sir, better than your own teacher. So that is something which makes you pretty much, I don't know how do we react to it. So that is what he simply had no idea what to say on this. It's only the truth, but all right, I will put it more seriously. He's like, although this is the clear truth. Hi, Karthik. So, although he made it very clear that this is the real truth, but he's like, okay, I know you need a certificate and I'm going to help you out with that. I will put it more seriously. It was still a glowing reference. Mr. Coe made the point that Albert was ready immediately to enter a college or institute for the study of higher mathematics. So, with this particular reference of his mathematics teacher, he had a plan to move to Milan, right? Wherein he could move to any of those prolific institutes which are there. It's only the truth, but all right, I will put it more seriously. It was still a glowing reference, and Mr. Coe made the point that Albert was ready immediately to enter a college or institute for the study of higher mathematics. So finally, with that particular certificate, with that particular reference, Albert could move to immediately to any of the college or institute for his further or for his higher academics, for his further studies in mathematics. I'm sorry, you are leaving us, although you are wasting your time in my class, he said. And he's like, although I'm feeling very bad that you are leaving us, but any which way, you are simply wasting your time. while staying here in my class, because you know much, 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 much more than any of us, or maybe more than me. It's almost the only class where I am not wasting my time. And on this, Albert made it very clear that this is the only class. And which class is it? This was his mathematics class. He had so much of interest in mathematics, right? That is why he simply said that this is the only class wherein I'm not wasting my time. Otherwise, I simply waste all my time by attending those history classes wherein we are supposed to learn all those facts, all those data, which are basically irrelevant to know. It's almost the only class where I'm not wasting my time, said Albert. But how did you know I'm leaving, sir? And he's like, okay, but how did you already know that I was planning to leave? You wouldn't have asked me for this reference otherwise. And on this, the teacher simply told him that, you wouldn't have asked me to make this reference for you if you would have no plans to leave our school. I thought you would wonder. And on this, Albert Einstein simply told him that, I thought you were going to wonder that why I'm leaving this school. There's nothing to wonder about, Einstein. I knew you were going to leave before you knew yourself. And on this, आपके साथ कभी I think maximum of you are very close to one or the other teachers in our schools, right? It happens, right? And they know you more than you know your own self. And that is what that role this mathematics teacher had in Albert Einstein's life. This teacher knew Albert Einstein more than he himself knew about his own self. There's nothing to wonder about, Einstein. I knew you were going to leave school before you knew yourself. Albert was puzzled. Puzzled means shocked or confused. Rather, confused is better to use here, right? Albert was puzzled. He was confused. What did the teacher mean? He soon found out. Before he had a chance to ask for an interview with the head teacher, he was summoned to the head room. So before he was planning to move to meet the headmaster, the head teacher, he was being summoned. Summoned means called or being asked to report, right? So he soon found out before he had a chance to ask for an interview with the head teacher, he was summoned to the head room. Well, it saves me the trouble of having to wait for an hour or two outside, he thought. And he's like, thankfully, this headmaster is calling me. This has actually saved me. This has actually saved me from the trouble of waiting for the headmaster outside for a couple of hours, and that would have simply wasted my time more. So thankfully, I'm so happy that he himself had called me. He hardly bothered to wonder. To wonder means to think here, right? He hardly bothered to wonder why he had been sent for, but vaguely, so vaguely means not clearly, he hardly bothered to wonder to think why he had been sent for, but vaguely or not very clearly, not clearly, supposed he was to be punished again for bad work and laziness. So somehow he knew that he must have been called by the headmaster, maybe because the bad performance he has given in the school or in the class, or maybe he has been called for any sort of punishment, or maybe he had a bad work, or because he had been all time lazy in the school. That is why the headmaster is simply calling him. Well, he had finished with punishment. So finally, he thinks that I'm so done with all of these punishments, and I don't need to do it anymore. I'm not going to punish you, the headmaster said to Albert's surprise. And on this, the headmaster simply told him that I have not called you just to give you any sort of punishment. So on this, Albert was super shocked. He was super surprised. Like, why is he talking to me like this? Why is he not giving me any sort of punishment? Your work is terrible and I'm not prepared to have you here any longer. And he told him that your work is so terrible, your work is so bad that I have no plans to make you stay here in the school anymore. Your work is terrible and I'm not prepared to have you here any longer. Einstein, I want you to leave the school now. And on this, the headmaster himself told him that I want you to leave the school right now at this particular moment of time. I don't want a student like you in my school. Imagine, guys, imagine Albert Einstein is being kicked out from his own school, right? That is so, I mean, that is so unbelievable, isn't it for you? That the man who is simply known, as I've already told you in the beginning of the session only, right? That imagine अगर हम ये वाली बात Eminem के बारे में कर रहे होते, अगर हम ये वाली बात maybe any of the Bollywood actors या हम किसी भी musician के बारे में बात कर रहे होते, this all would have been so agreeable, right? We all would have agreed on it that okay, it's okay. Somebody who is very artistic, it doesn't matter if they go to school or इनका कुछ, it doesn't even matter that way that they go to school or not because they have a very different way of living a life. So the school doesn't play a very great influence or a role in anybody's life. But imagine somebody whom we are reading right now in our science book, right? That is Albert Einstein, who has contributed in the world of science. Now, science again is a world of academia, right? ये academics का ही world है, right? And that too in physics, he has contributed a lot. A lot has been contributed by Albert Einstein. So now this fellow, Albert Einstein himself, was being kicked out of the school. His own principal, his own headmaster was asking him to leave the school. As also in the beginning of the session only, I have told you like how all these these prolific let's just say the people out there, for example Mark Zuckerberg, for example Steve Jobs, for example Bill Gates, for example the co-founder of Twitter, for example the founder of Spotify, right? All these people who are who are contributing to the world in some way or the other, they themselves are college dropouts. So sometimes the whole idea, this whole traditional school teaching is so bad that it kills the creativity of a person. And if you want to, although in today's time it is not that way, right? We have changed a lot. Our education system has changed a lot. And with the time, with new education policy, at least in India, there'll be a better education system, right? So, but this whole idea, like we are learning our answers, we are simply cramping them, we are trying to understand. Sorry, we don't even understand them. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I take my words back. Right? We don't understand these whole concept of it. Rather, we just simply do it. Right? The trigonometry. I'm an English teacher right now. I don't know why did I understand. Why did I learn trigonometry back then? I always had this fear of mathematics, but still, I always, being a teacher itself, I know how difficult it is to discuss about your own fears with your own students. But it is right there that I myself had a problem, checking out those numbers. I used to feel pukish when I used to look at those numbers, right? So that is something which we are supposed to do because we need to clarify those school exams. And that is something which Albert Einstein was simply against. He clearly debunked the whole idea of that education system which asks people to learn. To learn means to mug up the answers, and you simply need to write those answers in your answer sheets, and then only you will going to get your certificate, then only you will going to get your diplomas, then only you will be able to clarify your exam. So herein what all has happened, Albert Einstein was called by his own headmaster. He hardly bothered to wonder why he had been sent for, but vaguely supposed he was to be punished again for bad work and laziness. Well, he had finished with punishment. I'm not going to punish you, the headmaster said. To Albert's surprise, your work is terrible, and I'm not prepared to have you here any longer. Einstein, I want you to leave the school now. Leave school now? Repeated Albert, dazed. So dazed simply means, in a very confused manner, right? In a very, like, let's just say a state of shock. He's like, what? You are asking me to leave a school? In fact, he already had a plan though. That is what I said. You mean, said Albert, that I am to be expelled? Expelled means to expel somebody, to kick, expel clearly means to remove somebody from any place. So he was being expelled from the school. You can take it that way if you wish, Einstein. The head teacher was not mincing words, not mincing words as in he was not using any of those beautiful vocabulary words just to make him feel better. He made it very simple, very clear, simple and clear words that yes, you are being kicked out from the school because of your low performance and the way you stay in the school. You don't want to study, so that is why you are supposed to leave the school. The simplest thing will be for you to go of your own accord. So accord means your own wish. Accord means according to your own wish. So this headmaster simply suggested him that you can go out and you can live your life the way you want. It is simply your own wish, and then the question won't arise. Uh, but said Albert, what crime have I committed? So still he's simply asking like, what have I done? Why are you actually kicking me out from the school? Your presence in the classroom makes it impossible for the teacher to teach and for the other pupils to learn. He made it very clear to the headmaster that your presence itself is a problem for the teacher and for the pupils. All those pupils mean the students, right? All those who want to study, they simply can't do that because of your presence in the class. You refuse to learn, you are in constant rebellion, and no serious work can be done while you are there. And he's like, see, first of all, you refuse to learn. You are obviously creating trouble in the class. You have no serious work to do, and along with that, you are creating you are a total rebel, so that is why we don't want to have you here in the school. Albert felt the medical certificate almost burning a hole in his pocket. Now, Albert simply felt that that medical certificate, about which he was, thinking a lot, about which he actually had a trouble, getting it. So that was simply burning a hole in his pocket because it has no objective anymore. I was going to leave anyway. So he said finally to the headmaster that, you know what, I was actually leaving anyway. So I don't need you to expel me. I am leaving your school. Then we are in agreement, at least Einstein. So the headmaster said that, okay, then finally we are in agreement. You yourself is planning to leave. So, all right, okay, go. The head said. For a moment, Albert was tempted to tell the man what he thought of him and of his school. So, for a real little tiny second, he had this idea. He was tempted enough to tell the headmaster that what he thinks about his school and about his studies and about the teacher who are there. Then he stopped himself. So we came to know about Albert Einstein is that he was a man who simply, who was simply very, he had problem with things, but he always kept things to himself. He never used to let it, he never used to blabber, he never used to yell at people. He had a problem with his landlady also, but he never told this thing to her. He had a problem with the school system, and while leaving also, he didn't tell this thing to his headmaster. Without another word, holding his head high, he stalked out. So without in fact daring to say any of the words, he had no plans to talk to the headmaster anymore, and he stalked out and he left the place. Shut the door after you, shouted the head. And on this, the headmaster shouted from the back that, you need to shut the door. Albert ignored him, and Albert simply ignored him. He didn't pay any attention to him, and he simply left the place. He walked straight on out of the school where he had spent 5 miserable years. Right? So Albert wasn't in that school for exactly 5 long years. right? So finally, those miserable days were over for him. Without turning his head to give it a last look, and he in fact didn't wait and he didn't look back just to, to have a memory of it. Why it is so important? Because, whenever we leave a place, whenever we go out, whenever we are leaving a beautiful place, we do stop and we do check it out, that, you want to have a last beautiful glance over it, over, which you want to keep that as a memory with you forever. And but Albert didn't do it, because this wasn't definitely not the place wherein which was supposed to give him a good memory, right? So that is why he didn't stop and he didn't look back. He simply wanted to leave that place as fast as he could. He could not think of anyone he wanted to say goodbye to, and at that time he had nobody in his mind to whom he simply could say goodbye to. Indeed, Yuri was almost the only person in Munich he felt like seeing before he left the town he had come to hate almost as much as the school. So Yuri was the only person with whom he actually had the connection, with whom he actually had some sort of bond. Otherwise, this city had not given him any good memories. Elsa was back in Berlin. Elsa was who? She was Einstein's cousin. She was Einstein's cousin. Now, so Elsa was also back in Berlin. So, as we already knew that Elsa's parents, her father was working in Berlin. So, she has also moved back to Berlin. And he had no other real friends. And other than Yuri, he simply had no other friends to whom he was supposed to say goodbye to. Goodbye and good luck, said Yuri when he left. So finally, he left the place which was giving him so much pain. He left his own school. You are going to a wonderful country. So where Albert Einstein was planning to go? He was planning to go in Italy, right? So finally, he got the certificate from his mathematics teacher, who agreed to sign that, certificate, which could actually give him permission to move to some other institute or some other college in Milan. I hope you will be happier there. And with this, his own friend told him that I really hope that you will be going to be happy and you will going to enjoy there in Milan, because that was the only dream. So that is how we came to know that Albert Einstein never liked his own school. And this whole excerpt, this whole story is taken from the biography which was written by Patrick Pringle, the young Einstein, right? So this is basically taken from there. So finally, we know that Albert Einstein didn't like to go to his school because he simply didn't like the whole idea of traditional teaching, wherein you are simply teaching and the others are not allowed to ask the questions. And if they do ask, only one thing is being acceptable or allowed, was that you need to learn, you need to learn those answers, you need to cram those answers, and you need to write it down in your answer sheet. So that was the simple objective of writing up those answers. And with that, you're going to get a job, and that is the only set mindset of the people, that you are studying so that you can get a job and then you can have a life out of after that. But that was something, if imagine Albert Einstein would have agreed to, we would never have got the famous physicist who actually gave a different direction to science, to physics. So for once, and for making your own dreams come true, you need to have a wild, you need to go pretty much wild with your own thoughts, and that's what our very own famous physicist also did. With that, I'll take your leave, and I also request all of you to download Unacademy's app. And for that, you can use my code, which is AMBIKA. All right, everybody, do take care of yourselves and dream big and achieve those dreams. Bye, everybody. Do take care of yourselves.